International Media TV. Television that listens to you.
Hi, I'm Johnny Burrell. Welcome to the program.
It's time for the preach word. Y'all ready for it? Is everybody feeling as if they've been prepped for the word? Well, I'm very pleased to introduce at this time our brother, who so many in the United States of America claim as family. And I know black folks sure enough do. When we turn it on MSNBC, just because we know he's going to be asked a question on a subject that got in our craw that day, we know that MSNBC has the good sense to call Michael Eric Dyson to weigh in. They've been trying to get him to weigh in over the last 2 hours on something. He may or may not share with us, but I'm sure if the Lord gives it to him, he will. I want to bring him forward. And I'm not going to belabor the issue of all of his credentials, because he doesn't want me to. And it's not necessary. We just all know that he's anointed. We know that when we turn on that station, we will be spoken for. And the words that were in our hearts, the meditations in our minds and in our hearts, will come out on that screen. I present to you Dr. Reverend Michael. I knew. I just wanted y'all to call it Eric Dyson.
Do I have 2 minutes? What do I get? 2 minutes or 4?
He gets 2 hours if he wants it.
Thank you, Dr. Tasco. May we bow in prayer. Thank you, O God, for the richness of this hour, for the beauty of your holiness, and for your capacity to continue to bless us and keep us in your very safe and your very secure arms. We're grateful for the life of this great man, Dr. Nathan Hare, and we're grateful that you have given us this opportunity to celebrate him in this moment. Bless those who are suffering, bless those who are hurt, bless those whose grief is real. Give respite and relief to those who look to you. Now there is no word in my tongue that thou dost not know altogether, so may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. To Pastor Amos Brown, one of the great prophets in our culture, to Dr. Tasco, a great physician and healer of the spirit, to all of the distinguished ministers, Reverend Brown, think about Dr. Barnett, Dr. Tashaka, and so many others, elders, ministers, leaders, and artists, Brother Danny Glover, my dear friend, and so many of you who are gathered here and who are looking online. What an honor it is to be here to celebrate the life of one of the greatest scholar activists we have had in our community, Dr. Nathan Hare. And of course, when you say Nathan Hare, you got to say Julia Hare, because they were a dynamic duo, Batman and Robin, or Batman and Batman, or Batwoman, because she was a dynamo. And Dr. Hare, an extraordinary innovator. And all the words have been said. I'm just here to echo those who knew him far better than I, those who loved him and appreciated his commitment on the long journey that he was allowed to engage here on earth. So what I want to do is turn your attention to Isaiah 50 and the 4th verse. Isaiah 50 and the 4th verse, and there you will hear these words. The Lord God hath given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him or her that is weary. He waketh by morning, he waketh mine ear to hear as the learned. Bless you, my friend. So, in thinking of Dr. Hare's life, I want to reflect on the tongue of the learned. Now, we're living in a culture that is deeply and profoundly anti-intellectual. Now, lest you believe I'm joining Ron DeSantis and that ilk of political figure who has targeted Black and brown and Latino and Latinx and Asian and gay and lesbian and transgendered and bisexual folk, that ain't it. Richard Hofstadter wrote a magnificent book in 1963, Anti-Intellectualism in America, and he wasn't talking about us, the aforementioned. He was talking about the choice in part of Dwight Eisenhower over Adlai Stevenson, that America would rather have bravado and a kind of curious militarism than a statesman who was capable of articulating ideas that would lead the democracy forward. Now, if I had more time, I'd break that down. You see the parallel. I ain't got to tell you about the orange apparition we are confronting right now. And out of this great church will rise a president who will tell the truth to America as much as it can bear it. Right? And when we think about the anti-intellectualism in America, we got people who are proud to be unmolested by enlightenment. And they in office and they saying stuff and they are insulting people and they're beaten down. But Dr. Hare grew up in a culture that gave him an appreciation for intelligence. Now, I know some people, they grew up in hoods like I did in Detroit, where some people look askance at it and we look down on those who are intellectuals. When I was coming up, the nickname they gave me was Professor. I see they were prophetic. So the thing is that you could be a rapper or an entertainer, you can be a singer, you can be somebody who engages in the arts, and that's a beautiful thing, but we ought to make the life of the mind sexy in the way that the Hares did, and Nathan Hare did, growing up in Slick, Oklahoma. That's why he was clever, because he came from Slick. Y'all work with me here this morning. It'll work better. And so out of Slick, Oklahoma, going to Langston University, going to a historically black college and university, because they're still worthy of our support. They have produced so many of our intelligentsia. When you think about our leaders and our thinkers, still black colleges have been the source of so much that is good and healthy and powerful in our community. And so Dr. Hare got his start at a historically black college and went there and was trained by people of high intellect even if they weren't broadly celebrated. And then from there, he went to the University of Chicago, in Chicago, Illinois, as some of the brothers and sisters say, Illinois. Irregardless, Illinois. There were some Illinoises coming, but he was still there with them. And he went to the University of Chicago. Now, you know the University of Chicago is one of the elite institutions in America, comparable to what y'all got here in Berkeley or in Stanford. It is an elite institution, a private institution in Chicago dedicated to the Chicago School of Sociology, speaking about the stranger and those who are alienated from the common processes of American democratic institutions and the struggle for self-determination in the midst of a culture of sociological analysis that they brought to bear. So he went there and he gleaned the necessary methodologies and scholarship to be able to contribute to his own community. And I want to talk about that, since we're talking about the tongue of the learned. Ain't no harm in doing serious intellectual work. They got a thing out here now called Project 2025. That ain't made up of a bunch of Kid Rocks, a bunch of Miley Cyruses. No disrespect to Miley Cyrus. That's made up of thinkers, right? And some of our places we go, is all you gonna do sit around and talk? That's all they doing, is sit around talking, thinking, creating strategies and agendas to subvert democracy. So we need intellectuals. We need thinkers. We need people who are willing to contribute their cerebral acuity to fashioning projects and ideas that will help liberate and emancipate black people. Now I know I sound self-serving because I'm an intellectual too. If it wasn't for Nathan Hare, I wouldn't even be here. If it wasn't for Nathan Hare pioneering at the University of Chicago, and Dr. Julia Hare, and E. Franklin Frazier, and W.E.B. Du Bois, and a whole range of thinkers who have contributed to the expansion of our mindset, and Angela Davis, a bell hooks, think about the critical thinkers that have contributed to us. Think about James Baldwin, a thinker. God gave Noah the rainbow sign, no more water the fire next time. Think about Dr. Hare in writing about black Anglo-Saxons, looking at the black bourgeoisie and the infrastructure of middle-class existence and trying to demythologize and deconstruct some of the habits and dispositions, the inclinations of that particular strata that he studied. Ain't no harm in doing that, because we need it right now. And Dr. Hare had the tongue of the learned. Yes, maybe some speech impediment that was characteristic of his own upbringing, but that mind so sharp, that scholarly engagement so sophisticated. That's why we ought to celebrate our young people who are studying. As my daddy is saying, getting your lesson. I know y'all don't know nothing about Albany, Georgia. Y'all up here living nice up in San Francisco. Y'all don't know nothing about that, about the dirty. I grew up in Detroit, up south. Mama from Alabama, daddy from Georgia. And so Dr. Hare was serious as an intellectual, and we ought to celebrate our young people who are thinking critically about shaping their own existence to serve the masses. I ain't mad at rappers. I love them. I love the fact that these so-called illiterate young denizens of the post-industrial urban space generated language to help us understand. All scholars ain't in school. Standing by the speaker, suddenly I had a fever. Was it me or either summer madness? Because I just can't stand around, so I get closer in. The closer I get, the better it sounds. My mind starts to activate. Rhymes collaborate, because when I heard the beat, I just had to make something from the top of my head. So I fell into the groove of the wax and I said, how can I move the crowd? First of all, ain't no mistakes allowed. That's street scholarship. But we need formal scholarship, methodologies of sociology, a tradition of studying society, its habits and dispositions, its skills, its talents, its inclinations, its behavioral norms, its modalities of articulation in order to understand the white supremacy and the social injustice that prevailed and fighting it with your mind. And so he had the tongue of a scholar. Sometimes you don't know what them words be meaning. But the people using them know what they be meaning, and defending you against people who don't care about you know how. Sometimes people ask me, how come you use some of them words that I don't understand? Because I'm dealing with people who don't understand you. And I'm dealing in their language. So I'm dealing in a sophisticated, clever, self-important, narcissistic, jargonistic engagement so I can fight back. You got to fight with the gloves you got in the arena you fighting in. You ain't shooting no basketball in a boxing arena. Put on some gloves. And so the tongue of the learned was critical because Dr. Hare used his erudition, his learning, his strategic scholarship in defense of everyday people. And so when he came, 1968, to San Francisco State and establishing the first Black Studies program, the students had been all up in arms, and he joined them, and the administration got mad. You're supposed to be a Negro administrator. You're supposed to be distant from the kids, the unlearned, untutored pupils. You are to be the sagacious arbiter of truth in an objective fashion. What objectivity? Ain't no objectivity. Hannah Arendt already talked about the defactualization of America. We see that going on now. Alternative facts. What in the world is that? People just making up stuff. And so they wanted him to be an objective administrator, arbiter of the truth, by remaining distant from the strikes, 5-month strike of the students. But isn't it ironic? The very demands of the students created the opportunity for an academic discipline to come into existence. So now that academic discipline was brought into existence because of political fury, why would it deny the legitimate roots of its own origin? That'd be like Charles Darwin ain't trying to study evolutionary biology. Okay, I'm taking a risk saying that, but I'm trying to figure it out. I think that's right. That would be like Sigmund Freud trying to get rid of a couch in his psychoanalytic theory. That would be like Too Short trying to get rid of his favorite word. But let me just pass on that. So now, Dr. Hare is at San Francisco State. 1968, the year Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. The year Robert Kennedy was assassinated. And within that arena, as Dr. Tasco spoke about it, of the death of Medgar and Martin and Malcolm, this season, as she said, of assassinations, out of the hurt, the bruising, anger, and grief came a man bearing his books. And they thought those books weren't going to be a weapon, but they were. And how you gonna ask him, or as the brothers and sisters say, ask him, to separate his intellectual pedigree from his fundamental existential commitment. He's trying to sing the life he sang about in his song. As Mahalia Jackson would say, if y'all hip to Mahalia Jackson, I know. Y'all bougie and postmodern, y'all might not know Mahalia. And so, yes, Chicago. And so Dr. Hare was accosted by the administration because he dared identify with the students. But the students are the one who, through protest, created a lane for his academic discipline to live. Because black studies ain't no objective interpretation and analysis of the particular problems that prevail. Now, the funny thing is, they thought other disciplines were objective, but they were equally biased. Sociology, psychology, the so-called soft sciences, what they call in German the Geisteswissenschaften. That sounds good. Go home and say that 5 times. Versus the Naturwissenschaften, the so-called hard sciences, the real sciences, the physics and the geology and so on. But then Thomas Kuhn came along in his second edition of the Structure of Scientific Revolution saying, look, you got a theory about how the world operates. Then you got some disconfirming evidence to come along to challenge that theory. Then you got a crisis on your hand. And then you got a paradigm shift. Ain't none of it objective, homie. All of it is imbued with fragile relationships to a so-called objective truth that is constantly being reimagined by people who understand that ain't no such a thing as strict objectivity divorced from the implication and the coloring and the bias of where you stand in society. So if you born in Birmingham, Alabama, and you think Negroes ought to be subservient, your scientific discourse will become a handmaiden for your bigotry. That's why they were trying to use scientific discourse to prove how unintelligent black people and women and people of color from the Pacific Rim and everything was. Even Thomas Jefferson, in his notes on Virginia, said Negroes didn't have no harmony. Was he not listening to Beyonce and Destiny's Child? What was Thomas Jefferson doing? Well, we know what he was doing. He was singing some Luther Vandross. Don't you remember? I told you I loved you, Sally. Y'all ain't ready. I just thought Thomas Jefferson said, we lacked capacity for rational and objective engagement. And yet here was a man who owned human beings. Where's the scientific justification for that? Well, science became a handmaiden for that bigotry and bias, and they used their scientific discourse to justify their bigotry. And so Dr. Nathan Hare demythologized that, deconstructed that, challenged the notion that intellectual pursuits were divorced from existential and political and social movement. And he did it with his brain. I'm going to keep on saying, the tongue of the learned. I'll be going to some of these black institutions, they be saying, what y'all doing? When you're all these eggheads. We might be eggheads, but when you crack us open, we can scramble some deep ideas. Egg scramble. Come on, y'all. Work with me here. And so Dr. Hare was at San Francisco State. They got mad because he identified with the students, but don't get it twisted. He was criticized both by a white administration and some black students who thought he wasn't radical enough. You can get caught in that. People trying to out-radicalize you. I'm better than you. Look, we in the same boat, homie. We all getting hit. Now, we ain't talking about a person on the Supreme Court who's engaging in nefarious beliefs meant to undermine his people. I ain't gonna mention no names. You know, one of my favorite singers was Clarence Carter. That's it. Here you are on the Supreme Court, your wife wilding out, sending text messages to people who are trying to undermine democracy, and you say you don't want to be a beneficiary of white noblesse oblige and white patronage. How about that 287,000 RV you got, homie? How about your grand nephew getting the hookup? How about them billionaires taking care of you? That ain't part of the eulogy, that's just a little extra part right there. So Dr. Hare understood that he was being squeezed between condescending reproach from an administration and sometimes from those who felt on the ground he wasn't radical enough. He was a scholar trying to be a bit more serious about the means and methods of academic intervention in order to justify and legitimate the validity of your academic pursuit as well as its being used as a weapon of self-defense. Just got to say that. Just got to tell that truth. Unapologetically for the brains and the tongue of the learned. Then they kicked him out. 69, he was gone. The reason was, well, he had identified with the students and participated in the strikes, because even though the students were being critical, he went out there and joined them, because he didn't think knowledge should be warehoused in academic warehouses that were divorced from the local flora and fauna of human beings. So he went on with his wife to establish a think tank. He writing books, thinking seriously and critically about the world, because the tongue of the learned is necessary. Black studies at San Francisco State was seen by the administration as something that was curiously unintellectual. This is a bunch of politics. It's not serious scholarship. So they was worried about it. That's what they're doing out here in Georgia, but especially down in Florida, where they're trying to ban black books. They want to ban black books because they're trying to ban black brains. They want to ban black bodies. They don't want you to know what really went down. And Dr. Hare was part of the documentation of the vicious onslaught against a vulnerable but viable black ego, black mindset, and black intellectual formation. He was serious about using words to defend vulnerable black people. And you see these assaults they got going on today. Look what a predecessor we had in him. Look how he was a forerunner. He already understood back in 68 what we dealing with now in 2024. We got these bigoted believers, these horrible politicians who are trying to keep you from learning about what went on in the 60s and even as back as slavery, far back as slavery. They trying to make like it was a luxury ride on a cruiser. We ain't came on here on the same ships. And so Dr. Hare were serious about documenting our struggles, the implications on our psyche, the psychological devastation delivered to us, the choices we made in mates. They wrote about that. They wrote about what it meant to be black and then established a magazine, The Black Scholar, in its name, letting you know it privileged and prioritized black scholarship. That's still important. Yes, we need Kamala Harris, we need Barack Obama, we need the late Ron Dellums, we need Barbara Lee, one of the bravest soldiers of truth we got left, Maxine Waters, but we need some scholars and some thinkers who can put it on paper, who can write about it, or in cyberspace, and make you rethink what you're engaged with. That's why bell hooks is critically important. That's why Angela Davis is seriously important. That's why those thinkers who grapple with ideas in classrooms, and you think, well, you ain't on the front line. If I'm writing books that will inspire you while you're on the front line, we run in a relay race. Everybody can't do the same job, y'all. I used to work in a factory. Wasn't no summer job either. I'm in the factory. I'm a wheel brake and drum factory, so I'm doing the welding, the arc welding for the bass, the brake drum. Somebody else on the windows. Somebody else on the fenders. Somebody else on the sides. Everybody can't do the same job, but together we can produce a car. I'm trying to remind you that Dr. Hare made the life of the mind attractive. Young Negroes like me coming along, reading the Black Scholar, reading his books, drinking from the well of serious intellectual engagement that he put forth. We got to respect the tongue of the learned. I mentioned already Project 2025. What you think they doing? They coming up with schemes and statistics and ideas that are going to challenge your livelihood. And then Dr. Hare helped us understand with the tongue of the learned how we could challenge the United States of amnesia. Gore Vidal talked about living in the United States of amnesia. And I would say Barbra Streisand is supplying the theme song. Some of y'all old enough to know who Barbra Streisand is up in here. Remember she had that song, Memories? Gladys Knight did a heck of a remake, though, I gotta tell you. Could it be? Come on, y'all don't know. But Barbara said, the two brilliant songwriters who wrote it, was too painful to remember. We simply choose to forget. And America is in an extended period of amnesia. And Dr. Hare, Dr. Julia and Nathan, Dr. Hare was about challenging the amnesia with dangerous memory. Reminding us where we came from. America trying to act like it got here without the labor of black and brown people and of the Pacific Rim. They act like they laid those railroad tracks by themselves. Act like they built these institutions by themselves. We are seriously integral to the formation of American democracy. Black history is American history. Thank you, President Biden, for reminding us of that. Know y'all be putting old people out their jobs. You can say what you want. That old white man did more for Negroes than any president since LBJ. Tell it. I'm just letting you know. And I ain't talking about LeBron James, so that's not the LBJ. He over in the Olympics right now about to try to get the medal. So the thing is that they're trying to enforce that amnesia, but Dr. Hare was about the kingdom of dangerous memory. This country is built on the blood of black people, the labor of brown and Asian brothers and sisters. Then we got to expand it out to all the others who got dissed in America. That's why, we can't afford the luxury of dissing somebody. I'm black and I know about my oppression, but I don't care about you as a gay person. I got a job, don't worry about it. I'm just passing through.
You got to deal with every minoritized tradition that's getting dissed. And if your same people who are subject you to white supremacy are dissing other people, chances are you got more in common with them than you got with the white supremacists. The white supremacists are devastatingly accurate in their assessment that the nation, a part of it, may be ready to reinforce and to revive a vicious hatred of the other. But Dr. Hare taught us that you can use your mind as a weapon of liberation. George Clinton, some of y'all might have heard of George Clinton. George Clinton said, free your mind and your behind will follow. I know some of y'all dance to that. Never learn to swim. Yeah. I'm sorry, y'all are all stuck up. But anyway, the thing is that the tongue of the learned was a weapon against the amnesia that has clogged the arteries of American culture and the body politic. That amnesia is devastating. And his books are testaments of concentrated scholarship, of learned tongues, and of dangerous memory against the erasure of our people. What a great man. What a beautiful man. What a committed man. A man who reminds us that you and I must continue to build upon his enormous and epic legacy. That you and I must take the baton. He has run his race with vigor, with valiance, with a victorious consequence. And now it's up to us to take that baton and to move it forward. No matter what your color, your race, your gender, your sexuality, no matter what your class or your geography, we are part of this common human resistance to the forces that would undermine us. And what he taught us is that the tongue of the learned is a mighty witness to the possibility that we can transform the world in which we live. Not passive victims, but active agents of our own destiny. Long live the life, legacy, and love of Dr. Nathan Hare.
We thank God for the blessing of having our brother and sending him with an anointed message for this moment in time. There are no accidents with God. There are no accidents. The dots connect. This is our season. It's 1968 again. The baton is not being dropped. It's being grabbed from us. And we have to have the courage to pull it back. Take charge of it. Run with it. Win with it. And achieve the higher heights yet to be achieved. This is your time. Dr. Dyson has not only dissected the word, but he has also come to us today with an anointed message that is only relevant to this particular community that had the privilege of having lived with, learned about, observed, or heard the story of, or even benefited from the life of the Hares. Dr. Nathan Hare being the most recent that we lost. He was a reminder. He was an enabler. He was willing and did, in fact, take students who were ready and cultivate within us a passion that made it more fulfilling to live in the memory and the motivation of that time, to do the best we could at that time and thereafter, than to have the life of luxury. He helped us to get our priorities straight. And those who have left before us, who were on that front line, they dedicated their lives. We all know how they suffered. We understand the cost they paid. But in a strange sort of way, we had no regrets. We stand here today as a testimony to those who come behind us, young people in the audience who are listening. I feel that you feel what we felt. It's your job to go and exhort, tell others. It's not just the rap artist who will talk to you. It will be the elders who receive the message who have an obligation to pass it on. And my dear brother here, young though he is, he just dropped some pearls on you. And he dropped some wisdom to affirm each of us that we're on the right track. It's okay for us to smile and celebrate the life that we struggled through. It's okay for us not to regret that we didn't achieve the material objects, well, maybe all of the glory that we would have wanted, but we were on the front lines. And we gathered here today and we were privileged to be in the presence of those remains of our leader, our inspiration, Dr. Nathan Hare. And we were gifted to have Dr. Michael Dyson to be available, who, as I say, is in demand in Washington right now with that is occurring, that is of historic proportion. There are no accidents with God. I'm going to ask that we all come together at this moment. Olivia, where are you? Sister Olivia? We have the remains of Dr. Hare with us in this modified urn, and we want each of you to come and surround the altar. And we're going to have Dr. Dyson bless us with a closing word. You can gradually take your time and move forward. Will you now prepare us for a committal of a strange and different order, that we are not committing the ashes of Dr. Hare either to the ground or exclusively to this box, but we are committing the spirit of Dr. Hare into each and every one of us, that we can be empowered with an extra dose. That for each of us, and whatever drop of life we still have in us will not be wasted, and that we will remember this moment as a time in history in which the dots were connected, that we had 20/20 vision, what God had in store for us to do. This homeland, this neighborhood, this region that embodies even the future president of the United States.
We are grateful, O God, for this man that you gave to us. This hallowed moment made sacred by the obligation of time to pay attention to eternity. We who are the vessels of your will and way acknowledge passing through our midst of a giant that you gave to us. We are cognizant of his greatness. We ask now that you receive his spirit into your presence. And though not ashes to ashes and dust to dust, from ancestor to ancestor, from time to eternity, we pray your vigilant persistence in our lives and make his legacy a part of our breath, so that when we exhale, we inspire those who feel the breath of an ancestor giving life to us. This we ask in your name as we commit his spirit to you and his final resting place in the bosom of all eternity and in the hearts of everyone who hears his message. In your name and your sake we pray it all. Amen.
What do you say when the world has been turned upside down? This morning we went from one side of the world to the other. You can go from the happiest moments to the hardest. It is hard to even anticipate what will be done, what will be expected in the next moment, or what I may have said or might say that will upset the equilibrium of everything. But the idea is just to keep going and deal with it as it unfolds. And there's no way to go but forward, and nowhere to go but up. So I just keep on going, and if I keep going, then I presume it will be forward and up. And I've learned over many decades of experience that many blessings come in disguise, and even when they don't, you can make the best of a bad situation, or together we can make the best of a bad situation. We, of course, have to not only confront our own weaknesses, our own ignorance, our own lack of experience, a lack of knowledge of what is going on. We too were caught off guard. we did not anticipate this sort of thing in a million years. You don't anticipate it, even though it's all around you, and millions go through it. Yet it's kept hidden from the world. The way the society deals with it is to hide it from the world, to put people away, to confine them, as they say, although they don't understand or accept the fact that they deserve to be confined when they have not done anything wrong, when they have made they made some mistakes, but no particular mistake that warranted this. No crime did they commit, and yet they cannot get out. They cannot go home. They're separated from their loved ones, who, as they call them, loved ones, they are called loved ones, the ones who are isolated from the world in this condition. They are called loved ones, and they are left there in a sort of pre-crypt, a sort of mental, social hospice, and they are kept there until and you should go there sometimes and observe, and you will see that very few of their people, their relatives and their friends, come by to visit those loved ones. It is an exceptional day or evening when somebody comes by to visit them, and almost never the same person too many times again, the same person twice or thrice. They come and they go, and many people come out of curiosity. They want to see. They want to have something to, gossip about. They want to see and tell. They want to feel lucky themselves until it hits them, which they don't expect it will hit them, but they want to feel that it won't, and they hope that, of course, that it won't. And so they come by and they see, and they go back and tell others who didn't come and won't come what it is that they saw and what is going on with the dearly beloved of the person. Well, they are loved ones now. The next step at the grave, they become dearly beloved, from loved ones to dearly beloved, and so, but they are more and more treated as garbage. And vultures, people began to act like vultures. The people who profess to love them, the relatives, the friends, the helpers, they tend to come looking for what they can take away. Is there anything valuable? Some special picture, some bracelet, if they can, some money. Find a way to get some money. Meanwhile, the system itself is taking everything they can get. They will, and at the same time, the more they do give to you, the elderly and the sick, the more they take control of your life. They will help you a little bit, just enough to get control of it, and they then will put you where they want to, when they want to, and you can come by and see people filling the day. Sometimes they may be asked to tap balloons in the air. That's called creativity, innovation, very forward-looking treatment, just to hit some balloons in the air. But if you come on an off hour when, say, they don't expect anybody to come around, like late morning, although part of this is to get ready for lunch and get everybody calmed down, but basically it's to fill the time, fill the void in the off hour of a morning, and you'll see these elderly people sitting there like a choir, just looking into space like a choir, not singing, not saying anything, but just looking into space like a choir. All in the days. It's amazing how they all do that, but I guess the situation is hypnagogic, and once you sit there and stare, you eventually become sort of hypnotized, and you stay there, and you're more manageable, and the staff can take a breath, and all is happy, all is well in the kingdom of the loved ones. I think that society could do a better job. I think that they could find a way to how people live in their world. And of course, I'm talking about the people who don't. When there are many people in the family, many children or grandchildren or whatever, and people can take turns, they allow you to stay in the society. But I understand it's about 70%. But we're talking about millions here. When you get to 30% that are shoved into the so assisted living or some acute psychiatric facility because of their forgetfulness, then you're talking about a lot of people who are not allowed to be at home. They're not allowed to go home. They cannot go to see their relatives. Sometimes they might talk to their relatives if the relatives call them, if they can understand to come to the phone, if they are called to the phone by the business staff, if you call during the right time. And so because all of this is managed, all the communication between the loved ones or the incarcerated elderly, as some person called it, who was experiencing this so-called confinement or assisted living or whatever you might call it. They call it different things, but they aren't allowed to have access to the life they knew, the people they knew, or to go home again. And some never go home again. There may be some who might get one visit home or a visit here and there, but most are there forever. And even those who can't, who know that they are ill, who are suffering some physical ailment, nevertheless get tired of being in one little place on one little floor in 2 or 3 main rooms and their own little cubby hole that is often there, usually bare and barren of anything much, and they all come to sit in the day room and to go through their paces, or they stay back there alone and slowly lose what memory they have of the life they once knew and the people they knew. It seems like a part of this is done for convenience of the health industry. Part of it is done because of financial difficulties. But I think that part of it is just custom or tradition. And because of this custom of doing it this way, everybody keeps on doing it this way. It's easy for them to do it rather than to go out. They can send out people. Since they can't cure this ailment, they admit they can't cure it. President Obama has set the year 2025 as a goal post, as a year when they hope to have a cure for it. But right now, they know they can't cure it, yet they bring the people to them and they give them whatever they want to give them in terms of so-called care, but mainly they justify it, base it on the goal of safety. They think that, we must keep these people safe, and they might wander away, walk around not knowing quite what to do. People might take advantage of them, and they would not be safe. But the system fails to recognize that safety is a goal, but not necessarily an achievement that is based on not only the capacity to keep somebody safe, but also on the probability that they will not be safe, the probability that they will run into or encounter something that will rob them of their safety. So it's partly by chance, and it's like getting hit by a car. We can manage these things, but we cannot assure the safety of anybody. Even inside of the locked up facility, people get hurt, and they sometimes get killed or they fall. And of course, at the same time, we talk about safety, physical safety, we forget that the physical brain of the person is undergoing a transformation. We think that this person, they're not safe from their own body, their very brain, and we talk about keeping them, the outer body, their periphery safe, and yet we can't keep ourselves safe. We do not talk about getting rid of airplanes or cars because they kill thousands all the time. We do not talk about that, and we do not talk about locking them up, keeping them away. We might do that to an occasionally grossly negligent driver, but we wouldn't stop people from driving their cars to lock and confine them to protect them from harm, or to try to ensure that they will be safe. But safety is pitted over against the quality of life. It's pitted against happiness. How much have we gained if we are so-called safe, or we have enhanced at least the probability of our safety, and yet we are not happy, because while the safety is a probability, the unhappiness is assured. You're going to be unhappy being locked up for nothing, being there's nothing you've done and nothing they're going to be able to do much to you. So you're being locked up for nothing, and that's definitely going to be unpleasant, especially when you sit for all these many moments and minutes and hours and days and weeks and months and years thinking about these people that you once knew, those that you can still remember. Remember some people that don't even exist anymore. They have died while you were there, and they don't exist, but you think about them anyway, and you long for them, and yet they don't call you. You don't know they can't call. You don't know that those people who can call you but are not calling you could call. Well, you don't know why. You just realize that you are alone. You are abandoned. You are left out and put away. You are not living anymore. You are existing, and you sit by schedule and eat together with a group. And you sit, you do everything with a group. Everything is done with the same people. Unlike in life, ordinary life, your previous life, where you went to school with some, you played and you loved some, you hated some. You do everything here now with the same people. You do it with the same people in the same way, day by day, moment by moment. You're doing this. And so every day, this is going to include at least one period, a session, or whatever they might call it. It's going to include at least one unit of sitting like a choir with your co-inhabitants and staring into space, saying nothing, seeing nothing. We're just staring into space. And I don't know what that is good for. I presume it is relaxing, but it looks very bad. It looks pitiful and very wretched to see a group of old people sitting, staring in a choir, or like a choir, into space. So I don't know what society will do. We have this baby boom generation coming up. I have a friend who has written a book called Why I Wait. Carolyn Brent has written the book called Why I Wait. It was a #1 Amazon.com bestseller. All the more amazing because that was the first book she ever wrote. The first thing she ever wrote. And I think she wrote it well, but I think that it was, she hit on the head something that people are going through. And even though they are going through it alone, because most people don't help, they will say, isn't that, I'm sorry to hear that. Well, anything I can do. What can I do? Anything. I'll do anything. Just let me know anything I can do. And I will do anything. And of course, it will probably be the last time you will see them or hear from them. And you will hesitate to call and impose upon somebody. But one bad day, you might get your courage up, and you call, and you tell them, and they say, well, I said it would, but I'm doing this, I'm doing that. This has happened. My car broke down, whatever. I can't do this this time. I'll do it next time. If you can get them to do it once, that's about the last time you'll see of them. Because even if you had the nerve to do it, what would you ask this person to do? What would you ask that person to do? Which one would you call? Where is that phone number that they gave you? You have so many now. Other people are calling, partly through curiosity, to make that one call to you. But friends no longer call. After a while, they feed off. And then the relatives do the same thing. In-laws are really diabolical. They want to create a reason not to. Everybody, I think, is busy with their own problems. That's another thing. We all got to have problems. And so we really can't expect people to relinquish their own duties, their own responsibilities, their own concerns and likes and wishes. But society now presumes to do this for them, whether it's raising a child, teaching a child, disciplining a child. All these things are now done by other institutions. The family has been splintered. They don't do a lot of things they once did. Everything used to be done together. Now they're done apart because we have formal institutions, people who are hired to do these things. A lot of things are done by volunteers, but beyond volunteers, which you can only depend on when they are organized as such. But even then, it is an imposition and a limitation. But you get more when you have hired people. And there are bands of people, young people, students, and whatnot, unemployed people, who would love to do things. We could have somebody on each corner with a cell phone, with cameras. Well, they all are together now. We could have cars, scooters, whatnot. You imagine it. What we could do with the technology we have now, and a person here and there, in an organized fashion, they could watch the people as they walk down the street. They could communicate where they are, any problems that came up. They could have to supervise them, to keep them safe, at much less expense than hauling them all into a place where you're going to pay $5,000 or $6,000 a month just for the rent, just for the occupants. And then you got to pay all other kinds of fees for medicine that will not cure and will not bring back the happiness that you've lost or the happiness that has been taken away from you by the system. It is not brought back. You will not get it back by their shot or their pill. They will not cure. That will not return you to a pre-morbid existence, a pre-morbid state, a pre-morbid level. So they bring you there because it's easy. Everybody can poke you, stick you, rub you, pat you, and hit the cash register, which is right by there, and shipped off to the fax, to the insurance company, which is making a profit. You have people who are making the most money now who don't contribute anything, don't even presume to contribute to the health care or to the cure or comfort. They nevertheless make the most money, profit from investing into your health. Oh, this is what we have. Excuse me. Yeah, so we have the technology. We have. This is like a primitive example. I have it right here by my side. I have a cell phone and so on. I can take pictures. So we have the technology and the know-how, especially in minds that are better than mine, people smarter than me, who had better teachers than me. Well, I may have. If I appear smart, it is not so much because of native intelligence, but because I have had better teachers than many other people have. But some have had better, they would say, and they can figure this out. If they can't figure it out, they should get out of the way and let somebody who can figure it out. I would like to join the committee. I would like to be a part of the troop that addresses itself to this reconstruction, this human and health and medical, if you would please, reconstruction. Otherwise, soon I'll be like the rest of my cohorts. I'll be just sitting here, staring into space, just sitting, staring, like a part of a choir.